It is time to wrap up our program with Korea on Demand. This with Austin Givens, the man behind his YouTube channel, Eating What Is Given, joining us in the program to talk about all things food. Austin, good to hear from you again.
And how are you doing, SJ? So happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's, beautiful weather. Fall happens to be one of my favorite seasons in the 4 seasons. Unfortunately, it's the short one. And, it's good stuff. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. As you said, we're reaching the perfect peak gampung season. Fall leaves are changing, slowly getting into that perfect fall weather. And in my opinion, it's the perfect weather for Korean food.
Austin, I don't know how I think about that comment because rain or shine, snow or hail, I feel like every day is a perfect day for you when it comes to Korean food. But what do you mean by that?
Exactly. I don't know why, but when the weather starts to get colder, I feel like Korean food really shines. My wife and I always talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many soups and stews, jjigae, tang, jorim, like everything is warm and steamed and it's cooked at the table usually when you go out to eat or even at home. And, it's just soul warming. So every fall, I don't know why, I just want to boil some gamjatang. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you can argue that when it's even summertime, you want to get that nice hot soup to sweat everything off and things like that. But you're right. I mean, as the temperature has, been kind of dipping here, I'm a big fan of gooks, right? Soups. I've talked about
Absolutely.
how I love sundae-guk, I love teju gukbap, all of that stuff. And for some reason, maybe because, like you said, the temperature has been dipping, I've been actually seeking a lot of these warm soup. But anyways, Austin, over the past few episodes, we've been sharing about cities outside of Seoul, perhaps places that people may want to visit, sharing some good food you can experience there. And today we're going to continue on to our city food series. So, I'm wondering, what city are you going to be talking about today?
All right. Well, today, SJ, I want to discuss one of my favorite food cities in Korea. I think I've talked about it before on the show. It's a place that seems to be a bit underrated in most Korean food discussions. You don't hear it talked about quite often. So I want to share about it today. However, it is a place worth traveling to, especially in the colder months of the year. So today I want to talk about Tongyoung. SJ, have you ever had the chance to travel to Tongyoung?
I have actually visited Tongyoung in a number of occasions, actually.
Nice.
My dad used to live in Tongyoung for about 3 years. I've been on vacations to Tongyoung before. I have my wife's relatives are from Tongyoung, and so
there you go.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned it's a place worth traveling to, especially during the colder months of the year. Because I remember when I was going on my first vacation to Tongyoung, I went there at the peak of summer vacation, and boy, it was just way too hot down there, and so. I do recommend a lot of people to if you ever want to go to Tongyoung, and you're right, not only is it a very underrated food city, but it's a very underrated travel destination here in Korea. And so, I absolutely love Tongyoung. I've been there on a number of occasions, and I know you love oysters, and we've discussed this before. And Tongyoung, super famous for oysters. But what are some of the other other special foods that we can find in this particular city?
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to go on my typical oyster rant. I think our audience has heard that enough. And I'm happy because I want to talk about some other things that Tongyoung has to offer. And I'm a little nervous now that I know you have some roots there. So hopefully I do a good job. And if you want to add anything, please feel free.
But, I'm going to be honest with you. The all the times that I've been to Tongyoung, I've been having the same food over and over again. It's just oysters and raw fish, seafood. But I know that there's a lot of other foods that you can check out there.
Sure. Well, the first thing that I want to talk about, and it may surprise you, it may surprise some of our listeners, but in my opinion, this is an essential Tongyoung dish. It's a very, very local dish. And you can find a lot of these places inside the Tongyoung Seoul market, which is right by the ferry terminal. So if you're traveling down to Tongyoung, you're probably going to take a ferry, if you're a tourist, to some of the islands. So I recommend checking out Seoul Market. And there you can find several restaurants serving something called si-rak gukbap. So have you heard of si-rak gukbap before?
So
SJ?
I haven't had this when I went down there, but I don't know if it was your YouTube video or Chapsa's YouTube video, where it was one of you two guys who had tried this. I think it's the shiregi gukbap, right?
Exactly. So don't be confused. Like si-rak is just the regional dialect for shiregi.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about shiregi gukbap, the dried radish green soup. But in the market, the menu will still use that regional dialect. So you'll see restaurants that say, si-rak gukbap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of shiregi gukbap.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, though. Like, we could kind of find shiregi gukbap almost everywhere. I mean, it happens to be like one of the favorite foods of my wife. She's always cooking up shiregi guk here and there with some Tongyoung. But what's different about the Tongyoung version of shiregi gukbap, or I should say si-rak guk?
Yeah. So actually, I put this dish on the top of my list for anyone visiting Tongyoung because the dining experience in the market, it's unlike anything I've seen in Korea. They take this really simple bowl of very common Korean soup and they transform it into something absolutely exciting, I would say.
Our listeners might be going, well, how exciting can a bowl of radish green soup certainly be, and especially given the fact that it's in a traditional market at the Tongyoung Soho market. I mean, I don't know how exciting it could be, but I want to hear you out, man.
All right. So here, I'll try to convince you. So first of all, the restaurants are still local, and they look local. They cater to locals, which is kind of rare these days, even though they've blown up in popularity on blogs and YouTube and stuff. But they open super early in the morning. One of the restaurants opens at like 4 a.m. And this is actually to cater to the fishermen who arrive back from the sea early in the morning. They fish all night and they arrive at 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning. So they're cold, they're wet, they're tired, and of course they're hungry. Now, because of this, not only is a steaming hot bowl of soup served, but you actually sit on tables, it's like bar style.
That's right.
Around a huge buffet of banchan and also small bites of food. It's really crazy. They have yananmari, omukbokkeum, tons of different kimchis and juts and even dotorimuk, lots of muchim and salads. It's like a buffet soup hybrid place, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine you're going early in the morning. You're sitting bar style, literally around this buffet, and you become friends with the people around you because you have to kind of pass around the food, or if there's some banchan next to someone, you have to ask politely if you can grab it. It feels like you're at grandma's house or something. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I do remember, again, I don't remember whose video it was, but I do remember watching this, and I believe also this particular restaurant was covered in a huge food show in Korea as well. And I do remember it is very unique. So for our listeners out there, it's not your typical table and chair and things like that. You're right. It's kind of like a bar style where in the middle there's a whole bunch of banchan. So, I mean, simply put, it's a fisherman's continental breakfast, right?
Exactly. But there's a couple more things about this that make it special. First of all, it's all-you-can-eat food. They charge about 5,000 won to 6,000 won.
Wow.
I mean, you're looking at $4 here for all you can eat, right? But I would say, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, the price is ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy ridiculous. It's like the best place for a cheap meal, and it's healthy, it's warming. But I would say, like, the best part about it, the icing on the cake, if you will, is the spices that they add here. So a lot of people who go here might not know what the different powders are on the table. But these are local Gyeongsangnam-do spices and herbs. And honestly, people coming from Seoul might taste these herbs and think it's not Korean food at all.
Yeah, so Austin, you're making this bowl of soup a little bit more appetizing here. Again, it started off from being a simple shiregi gukbap, or as they called it, si-rak gukbap there And you're telling us there's secret herbs that they're adding into this. So tell us about these herbs.
Exactly. So there's going to be two powders on the table. And the first one I think is the most special. It's called JP Garu. However, they're using what's called JP Ipgaru, which is the leaves of the JP. So as far as I know, JP does not have an English name because it's quite rare. It's kind of hard to find in Korea. The berries of the herb that come out in the fall, the peppercorns, are very similar to sancho or Szechuan pepper. You know, the maramat that makes your tongue sort of go numb when you're eating maratang, right? Yeah. But here they're not serving the peppercorns. They're actually using the leaves of the plant, the leaves, which taste like a yuza lemon mint mixed. It's like a cooling mint. And it's a really wild flavor. So JP is actually one of those sort of hidden ingredients in Korean food, mostly in Gyeongsang-do and Jeju Island. And in my opinion, I think it needs some kind of revival. It has started. I saw on Jeju recently, there's JP ice cream now. I'm happy to see that. Yeah, it's delicious.
So for our listeners out there, I've known Austin for some years now, and one of the things that you need to know about him is he loves chepi. I've had chepi once in my life. I remember I was visiting my father-in-law's brother's house, and they had ordered, or they made some chuotang, right, which is like the mud loaches that are the freshwater loaches, and it can be a bit fishy. And so, my father-in-law was like, here, this is what's called chepi garu, chepi powder. You want to add a little bit into it to add a little bit of a kick to it. And, I thought it was going to be like you said, sancho or Szechuan peppers. I was like, I like spicy stuff. Yeah. And let me add this. It's pungent. It's an acquired taste. I can't
It's hard to describe, right?
You're right. It is sort of lemony. It has that yuja, lemony cool mint, but it has that kick. I can't describe that kick. But it's an acquired taste. But you absolutely love this. I've seen you pound soups with chepi garu.
Oh, yeah. Man, I went to Jeju recently and had it in the mulhoe. They put JP in the mulhoe, which is pretty amazing. So, as you said, I think most Korean people, or at least when I talk about JP as a foreigner, they immediately think I'm saying gaepi, which is cinnamon.
Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about JP. And then they say, oh, it's sancho. And sancho, some people think it's a dialect, but it's actually a very different plant if you look at the leaves. So if we go hiking together on Jeju someday, SJ, I'll show you the difference. I'm sure we can find sancho and we can find JP up in the mountains.
Yeah.
So actually the leaves of the sancho taste quite bitter, and the leaves of JP taste bright and refreshing. And as far as I know, it's a Korean herb. But yeah, anyways, let's get back to the shiregi gukbap. Let's get off of Jeju Island now. Right? Yeah. So you add JP garu, but they also have something called banga, which in English is like anise hyssop. They call it Korean mint, right? Yeah. So if you can guess, like the leaves of this plant are sweet and anise tasting. Yeah, it's crazy.
I had this. Wow, what's interesting is the very same place. Oh, I see what it is. So my mother-in-law makes these panga pancakes. Was what it was.
Sounds awesome.
And so panga also, you're right. It has a certain taste. It's not as pungent. It's not as strong as chepi. No, I think it has a more pleasant a taste to it, and it's got a nice scent. And if you put it in pancake, it's delicious. I've had this, and you're saying they also put this into the soup as well.
Yes. Well, actually, I've been to 3 restaurants, and one of the restaurants had the banga it garu as well. So they had a powder. They took the banga leaves and made a powder. So you can kind of imagine you have JP and banga, these two Gyeongsang-do herbs, in this bowl of shiregi gukbap. In my opinion, when I ate it, I thought, is this Korean food? Like, this does not taste like anything I've ever had in Korea, but it's amazing, and it's a local traditional food. fisherman's breakfast. That's what they eat.
For our listeners out there, if you've ever stumbled upon chepi powder, don't make the same mistake I did where you put a whole scoopful of it. You have to put very little, and taste it.
Small.
Yeah, and if you like it, add a little bit more because I really thought I put a spoonful of it and I couldn't eat it anymore because it was basically the flavor of the soup just completely disappeared here.
Absolutely.
Austin,
Absolutely.
Let's talk about other foods that you have to check out if you go to Tongyoung. What are you going to be recommending for all of our listeners out there?
All right, absolutely. Real quick, I want to mention the two si-rak gukbap restaurants. If you go to Tongyoung, I recommend Huni si-rak if it's your first visit, and then Wanjo si-rak if it's your second visit. But yes, besides siregi gukbap, I want to talk quickly about chungmu gimbap, right? And I'm assuming, you've been to Tongyoung a few times. So, SJ, are you familiar with chungmu gimbap?
Oh, absolutely. The funny thing about chungmu gimbap was, remember, I'm technically a Korean American. I've lived here for 14 years now. But when I first arrived in Korea in my first year, I worked at a radio station in Chungmudo Station.
Nice.
And so all those times when I saw these chungmu gimbaps being sold in Myeongdong because it was near Myeongdong and it was a great snack, I thought chungmu gimbap was invented near the area of Chungmu Station, but Chungmu is old name for Tongyoung.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right.
So this is a specialty that originated in Tongyoung many, many years ago.
Exactly. So from what I understand, it started in the 1930s. And I love that story, by the way. Yeah, Tongyoung used to be called Chungmu. And, but this, again, was food influenced by the fishermen here and that fishing culture. So here's the story of Chungmu gimbap. Before heading out to sea, the fishermen needed to bring along a light meal. But when they brought regular gimbap out into the ocean, there's no shade. You can imagine in the summer, like some gimbap sitting out in the hot sun.
No good.
It's going to get soggy, unappetizing, maybe even a little dangerous for food poisoning.
Absolutely.
So they invented this thing called chungmu gimbap in the 1930s. They take only gim and rice, and they roll it into a really small roll. It's about the size of your thumb. And, of course, they brush it with chamgiram, which is delicious. But then they add ojingo muchim, which is like a spicy squid salad. It's served on the side, as well as sokbakchi, which is a thick radish kimchi. And if you get that real authentic chungmu gimbap, it's not just any sokbakchi. It's gyeongsangdo sokbakchi, which I think they actually add croaker broth. They add a fish broth to the kimchi to ferment it, actually.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah, I've had this on multiple occasions. This is the weird thing, right? When you see it from the outside, it's like, I mean, how good can it taste, right? It's so simple. It's like, it's kim, it's rice. It's what kids like when, they don't want to eat. You just give them rice and kim and that's it. But you add this ojingo muchim, like you said, this spicy boiled squid salad, cold serve, and you add kimchi radish, kimchi on the side. You put that together, and it's just, for some reason, all of that together works so well. But I didn't know that the si-rak gukbap is also typically served alongside this dish, too.
Yeah, we can't escape si-rak gukbap today. But apparently, traditionally, they would send the gimbap out into the sea with a cup of si-rak gukbap. And a lot of the restaurants in Tongyoung still serve si-rak gukbap next to the chungmu kimchi, or chungmu gimbap.
Oh, it would be so good. That sounds so good. I haven't gone. Well, I've always done takeout.
And I mean, that's traditional, right? You know, take it with you.
And so I've never had any si-rak gukbap with it, but still, even with this, and I'm one of those people like where you have kimbap, you always kind of have a small soup on the side. But this really gives you that full-on Tongyoung experience there. And basically, it's a deconstructed kimbap for fishermen. I know, like the people these days, they have all these restaurants where they deconstruct food, but this is the original deconstructed kimbap.
Exactly. They're way ahead of their time. Way ahead of their time.
All right, Austin, we have time for one more suggestion. What else should we check out in this particular city?
All right. Well, we're going to go back to soup again, but not si-rak gukbap. There's actually a really very special restaurant there. One of the top matjip in Korea, in my opinion. It's called Buil Sikdang, and they serve what's called bokguk and 매운 bok 매운탕 as well. Bokguk and bok 매운탕.
So bok is poga, right? You're talking about the puffer fish, right?
Exactly, the puffer fish. Have you ever had this, SJ?
So, oh man, so I've had fried puffer, and one of my list of food I must try out before I die happens to be raw puffer fish.
Yes.
Now, it is very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to eat raw puffer fish only because only experts have the skill to remove the poison and all that stuff. And I heard that, it has a nice tingly taste if you have it because there's some residue of poison in it. But bogakguk, I believe I've had... I don't know if it's the original bogakguk from like what you would get in Tongyoung, but I do remember when I had, the puffer, fried puffer. I went to the restaurant. They gave us a side of bokguk, but I don't know if it's the same thing, though.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, this place, it specializes in the bokguk. And by the way, even eating, cooked puffer fish can also be quite dangerous. But you don't have to worry. These places, they get certified to handle the fish, and
Absolutely.
they have enough experience. What I love about this restaurant is I go there, I order bokguk, which is like very clean, clear broth. Like
Okay. It's the same thing that I've tried then, yeah.
Yeah, and then right next to it, you get bok 매운탕. It's like this perfect spicy stew to enjoy with soju. So, man, I think it's a great dish to have in cold weather. And just real quick, one last fact about Tongyoung while we're talking about soju. According to the 사장님 at Buil Sikdang, according to the owner, she claims, and I believe her, that Tongyoung drinks the most soju per capita than any other city in Korea, based on population size.
I would not be surprised because there is other kind of restaurant specialty where they give you like a bucket full of soju and unlimited panchans and like side dishes for you to enjoy with soju. But man, I have to say, if you have a choice of the clear broth version and then the 매운탕 version, which is the spicy one, it works both ways with soju. And I think because in Tongyoung, there's so many dishes that go well with soju, I'm not surprised that there is a high number of people who end up drinking drink soju in Tongyoung. But is there a specific kind of soju that they drink? I know there's like certain alcohol that they prefer.
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot. I hope I don't get this one wrong, but I think it's Bondae. Am I right?
Huh? So yeah, it might be because it's near Busan, right?
Yeah, I think I think that's the regional soju. And man, now I sound a little bit like I maybe enjoy soju too much. I knew that answer kind of quick.
What's tongsul?
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, tongsul, which is what you were mentioning, is this idea of they serve the alcohol in an ice bucket.
Oh,
and a lot of the
okay, that's why. Okay, I see.
Yeah, they call it tongsul. And actually in that region, especially if you go outside of Tongyoung, you'll see places advertise tongsu, which means ice bucket alcohol, basically.
Yeah, and so I think for a table, you get 4 bottles of soju in a bucket full of ice.
Yes.
And they just give you a whole bunch of anjus or these side dishes for alcohol. And so the consensus is like, if you're a big drinker, 2 people is really, it might be pushing it, but usually you want to go there with more people, 3, 4 people. And I believe that's the reason why so many people in Tongyoung drink soju is what.
Absolutely. And you got all that fresh seafood. So I've actually been to a Tongsu restaurant where they just have a big cooler in the middle of the restaurant full of ice. Well, and because the restaurant was so small, right?
Oh, man. It's Friday, and now all I'm thinking is soju now. Austin,
soju.
All right, thanks to you. Well, anyways, I want to thank you very much for covering the great, great underrated city of Tongyoung. I know you're going to be traveling all weekend. Have safe travel, and looking forward to talking to you again next month.
All right, great. Thank you so much, SJ. It was a blast.
You can listen to Korea Now with me, SJ Lee, by downloading the Arirang radio application or tune in online by visiting www.arirangradio.com. So make sure you tune in Mondays through Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Korea time.